Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
Yeah, I'm grateful to have such a nice panelist of investors. I am on the other side of the panel. I work for a startup, so it's I guess why it's interesting to have this conversation that I will moderate. There are mostly two topics which I want to tackle today. The first one is investing and entrepreneurship during and after COVID-19, which I think is a topic that we all have to deal with on a daily basis, and kind of there's a lot of uncertainty. We kind of we don't know what's coming, but we have to make business decisions, and I think this is an interesting topic. The second one, all three of you are from India, but you all three have experience also living and working abroad. This is also a topic that I want to tackle. India is a country with lots of opportunities, challenges, and I'm interested to know what India has to offer to the rest of the world and what the rest of the world has to offer to India. Hello, everyone who's attending this webinar on YouTube, Facebook. If you have any questions to our panelists, please do type them on the comment sections, on the chat, on the Q&A. We're going to try to squeeze in as many questions as we can. So to start with this topic of what does investing look like in terms of COVID-19, I maybe want to start with a basic question, maybe to you, Aarti. What effects does COVID-19 has on your day-to-day job these days?
So, Julian, thank you. Thank you for having me. Excited to be on this panel. A very good evening to everyone. In my opinion, so most of us are experiencing a pandemic for the first time in our lives. And while, we've seen like the 2008 crisis, the meltdown, the Lehman Brothers crisis, and some other dips here and there, this is completely different. This is not a gradual macroeconomic event which brewed for some months and then it blew up. This was a sudden halt in our economic activity. And the truth of the matter is that the best in the industry have no idea about how things are going to evolve. Like, I have no idea about how things are going to evolve. As a family office, we're being extremely, extremely conservative. We are a Banya family, so as it is, we are conservative. And in these times, we're being very cautious with our investments. While our portfolio and my day-to-day job, which involves looking after our majority of our private wealth, family wealth, and my own angel investing entity called DBR Ventures, our portfolios have taken a hit, whether it's in equity market or in terms of a few startups. But most of our investments are long-term investments in solid, good companies, and we are staying put with those investments. So not much has changed other than like an internal panic and just like a bracing up yourself to kind of be a little cautious. But we are investing for long term, and so we're staying put with those investments.
Julian, I think you're on mute.
I am on mute. This is solved. So you mentioned that your portfolio took a hit, and I think this is something that, as an investor, you are directly concerned with, is supporting your startups. So maybe Mahavir, you have a lot of angel investor networks. So what do you tell your startups? How do you support them along the crisis to make them be stronger and exit this crisis in a better way than they were when they entered?
So existing investments, what we did was, obviously we took stock of our existing investments first, put everything new on hold end March, and took stock of existing startups. 2 or 3 things we made sure that they did. If they were pivotable startups and they were being affected by COVID or COVID-like situation for the next 6 months to a year, we asked them to pivot, whether it was back end, front end, whatever end. If they were not pivotable and the impact was medium to high, we told them to cut down on expenses, lie low, maybe look for some bridge funds 3 to 6 months when they need it, but kind of survive and duck down the crisis, which can, as Aarti said, can go on forever, but at least for now, 6 months to a year. Startups that were not impacted were in the sectors that are doing well, whether it's agri, logistics, health, education, whatever. which were not impacted, we became aggressive on them. We wanted them to go further, deeper into online education, on college, stuff, K-12, whatever. So 3 different things, 3 different actions, and we do take actions. And obviously, luckily we didn't have anything hitting the hospitality and tourism sector. So otherwise, that would have been a dead meat right now, and we would have let it go. But that's something that we did, and that's under control as of now. Most of our startups have 6 to 9 months of runway at least, even if they are impacted by because of the commerce being slow or the economy is slowing down. But more or less on track.
So, but what will you tell the entrepreneurs themselves? How should they, as a CEO of the startup, go through the crisis on the way they deal with their business?
So, I think everything, even the new startups, bottom line has become far more, it was becoming important in the last year and a half, but now it's become all the more important. Cutting down on expenses, unnecessary growth into various markets, various verticals not required. Investments into R&D are still good. They should continue despite a burn if required, because technology will be a game changer. Data has become very critical, and we're trying to, again, data is part of R&D from our point of view. Data is being collated. We're okay with burning there. So basically, lie low, cut down on your operations, don't enter or venture into new markets. Make sure you survive for longer and service your customers, service your employees, work, backwards and forwards. And that's what I would tell everyone that I've told my startups also.
Okay, thank you. And Ashish, you are based in Singapore, which is I'm in Singapore, so I know quite well what's happening here. We had kind of a first really small wave at the very beginning, and then a much bigger wave, which we are currently semi-lockdown in our home. Opportunity or risk, I guess it's a mix of both. That's what we have learned from Aarti and Mahavir. Have you invested in a new startup since it started? And if yes, in which field? Why did you took this risk of going full in a startup during a time of crisis? And if not, what has stopped you?
Well, I make investments across Singapore and India. So many of the startups I'm looking at is Singapore-based and India-based. I think it is definitely a risk, but at the same time, it's an enormous opportunity. In our view, the world will not be the same again. And I think this is very cliche now to say that, but we are seeing evidence that particularly in areas like health tech, particularly in areas like B2B automation, including in consumer tech, where people are ordering, there are a lot of shifts taking place, right? Including in the area of fintech. I mean, a lot more of digital. We have a company in that space where we can see a lot more change towards digital payments in India. So I think if you take these 4 sectors, health tech is very obvious. I think we have a pharma platform which has seen orders go through the roof. We've got the consumer side, where we are clearly beginning to see a lot of new first-time users coming on the platform, which is not a typical profile. So earlier, if you had profiles of say 20 to 35, typically, now you're seeing a very different kind of profile coming to online. We are seeing shifts in B2B automation. A lot of companies are in that space, particularly if you're essential for continuity of the business, and which you are helping companies automate and go online. We are seeing them get a lot more traction. In fact, large enterprise deals are closing within weeks for some of them. So while we are definitely very cautious with our investors, with our investments, on the portfolio side, we have worked out a plan one by one to make sure that they have a 12 to 15 month kind of runway with a combination of factors, some that Mahavir mentioned already, so I won't repeat. But on the opportunity side, we see these shifts. And as a result, we are willing to take some bets. We've closed a deal, we've closed a couple of deals actually, which one in the food delivery space, which was kind of a bridge round, and one in the sort of digital payments kind of space, not payments exactly, but digital like collections kind of space, which is also very important because it serves the hinterland of India. And if both these opportunities are exciting, and both have been doing well in the crisis. So we are actually actively looking for good deals in these 3 or 4 areas. And again, if you are investing for a long time, there is, to our mind, there's definitely a dip. You'll definitely go through a trough. But if you're betting on the right trends and the right companies and coming in it at the right value, then over a longer time you could end up making a very good money. So that's the basic logic.
What are these values you're looking for?
What are the values? You mean, I meant valuation. So you could come in at a very good valuation at this point.
Oh, right. Then we have another question from the panel, which I think is very interesting. One of our attendee has asked, what can startups look forward to in terms of funding in the immediate post-COVID-19 world? Because we have been in a lockdown, which has been extremely conservative in some places. So the attendee is asking, are the coming months looking any better? And is this a good time to seek funding? Maybe Aarti, you want to take this question?
Honestly, I would say it's a difficult time to raise funding. You would be lying to yourself and to others if you say funding is easy right now. As a family office, we are restricting funding new startups or ventures unless it's a brilliant idea or something different which could help in these times. What most funds, including our family office, is doing is looking to back up our existing startups, because there might be our own startups which require additional funding in these times, and they're good, solid startups which we would want to back up in these times. So I feel things might be a little difficult. However, if you now that you've seen a pandemic, you have the opportunity to kind of pivot your startup in a way and present in a way. If you show true value proposition, there is liquidity in the market, and funding will be difficult, but not impossible.
Mahavir, have you seen any recent new ideas which you might invest in?
So I won't generalize it. Obviously, domain and stage of the startup are very, very important. Broadly, I agree with Aarti. I mean, there is a dip. There's no question about it. People are being cautious. Valuations will be lower, as Ashish said. But if you have a good product, a good service, value for money, POC in place, growth week on week, month on month, and you are not much impacted or about the same or a little better off because of this COVID, nothing wrong if you're okay to take a little bit of hit on the valuation and get the right investors at the right time. I don't see people not investing 3 months or 4 months. I mean, we are, as Ashish said, we are discussing deals. We just issued a term sheet or two. So we are talking to the right products or right services, but we have become a little bit tougher on valuations, broken down into tranches. We've just become a little more cautious because we don't know what direction this world will go. And that's the only thing, I think.
So, if I may add to it, Julian, I think there's no doubt that the times are tough. And if the question is it easy to raise funding? Not at all. I think that's the straight answer. But if you're an entrepreneur, I think you are a good entrepreneur is creative about how he's going to run the journey, right? And right now, obviously, the first source of capital is actually your own business. So how can you really squeeze cash out of your system and increase your runway? Whether it is through by going to customers and offering them if you're a SaaS company, offering them a deal which is longer term, or if you are an R&D company, then perhaps doing a paid prototype, which brings in cash. Any kind of cost savings, that's savings and internal generation for you, if you like. So I think, other than that, I think what we are finding is that we have some companies in the US where in fact, many countries are running that program. Hong Kong is doing that. Singapore is doing that. So we have some international companies which are also benefiting from some of these government-related sort of loans or soft loans. So you've got to look for alternate ways of funding, but most importantly, you need to be clear how you're going to survive it and how you're going to come out and gain from it after the crisis. Once you have that in place, I think funding will come if you survive this.
How about HR? Because I believe that to be ready for what's coming after, you need to keep investing in R&D and make sure that you have the right person on board when the crisis is over. However, this doesn't go well with cost saving because personal is the most expensive expenditure in the companies. So what would you recommend to startups how to balance keeping the right amount of person to prepare for what's coming, or cutting costs to survive the crisis? Mahavir?
So I wouldn't cut my cost on a good HR, especially if I'm a tech company. If I don't have the cash flow, I would defer payment. I would give a deferred bonus, defer payment, offer ESOPs. I wouldn't let him or her go. I mean, I think there are very, very, and people do understand times are tough. I would rather get a salary cut and be paid 6 months or a year down the road, or have a product-based target, which if I complete at the back end and then being paid. I think there are very innovative ways where the co-founders can sit with their teams and find out ways to keep good people. I wouldn't let for me, HR or team is the number one thing that any company has, and that's what I invest in. I won't let them go no matter what, even if it's giving them equity, convertible. There are multiple avenues, even if, like Ashish said, SBAs or bank loans or debt, even if I have to take, I won't. If my product is good and it's tech enabled and my team is good, I won't let my tech team go.
We have seen crazy things in terms of valuation these days. I think Zoom, the product we are using right now, is valued more than the 4 biggest US airlines together. Companies that used to be valued very high are crashed. Talking about Oyo, WeWork even started before. In these uncertain times, do you see any startups becoming the next Google, the next WhatsApp, the next Uber? Maybe Aarti, you want to take the question?
So next Google, I think startups, there are a number of companies which are innovating every single day. And if I could predict the next Google, clearly I would be going and investing there and not sitting here. But, for example, Facebook's just come up with Facebook Shop. You don't know which company is coming up or pivoting in what way. I think what this pandemic has also taught us is that we can change, consumer behavior can be changed so quickly that it's if an innovative company finds way to kind of get consumer attention and be on the right path, then I think very soon we might see an Indian company coming up with becoming the next Google or a next Facebook, But currently I don't have any predictions. Maybe the healthcare sector.
I have a follow-up question that comes from an attendee. Given the present scenario, what's happening, there are many big startups. So I guess we're talking about unicorns, Airbnb, or WeWork that risk failure. So what are, from this failure for you, the major takeaways in terms of business models? And what are for you the essentials behind making a repeatable, scalable, and profitable growth model? Ashish, you want to take this question?
Yeah, sure. I think it started. Relook at the business model started sometime last year, particularly when the WeWork's IPO did not go through or did not go very well. I remember Goldman Sachs CEO came in and said that IPOs are here to stay, even for startups, but we need a very clear path to profitability. And I think so that was one very clear trend. And I think if there was any way to drive home that message with great speed, COVID did it. There was no better way of getting everyone to learn that lesson fast. That you've got to be, at the end of the day, you've got to have good gross margins. You've got to have spend cash in a very prudent way, and you need to get bang for buck. Now, obviously, we had a scenario where VCs or capital was chasing the top line number or some vanity metric, right? That has become extremely, that's gone away. You've got to show that you can use that capital to drive your engine or your train to a path to profitability. I've got a significant bias towards that. In fact, right from the first investment, one of the things that we always look for is unit economics. And even though you could say that capital efficiency is not something that VCs incentivize you for, you would find all our companies much more capital efficient than their peer. Because ultimately, as a founder, if I'm taking money even at a higher valuation and blowing it up, it's my money because it's my equity, right? And at some point, the public market or the M&A will come and ask you the hard question as to what can public markets pay you for an IPO, or what would a listed player pay you for what they're going to buy. And that's when the sort of real world valuations start to impact, the VC journey or a startup journey. So at some point of time, they have to meet. Now, what's going to happen and what's happened is because of WeWorks and COVID, I think that gap is going to become narrower. A lot more startups are going to think about what is my unit economics, what am I spending on, how do I spend money to really drive value in the company by higher revenues, by greater value to customer, and so on and so forth.
It's interesting because I recently listened to a webinar and the speaker was saying that companies now should focus on cash flow and not on profits, which I think is the key also to going through this crisis.
So just to, add to that, obviously that point is absolutely valid, what you said. What I'm saying is not contradictory to that. In the short term, for survival, you have to focus on cash. In fact, we are telling our companies for the next few months, throw away your P&L, just focus on your cash flow statement. That's the most important thing. But going forward, in terms of the business model, that's the shift that I was talking about.
I have maybe one last question related to COVID-19, and I'm not sure you have an answer. What would be for you the most underrated industry or type of startup that actually help this fight against COVID? Does any of you have any idea of an underrated industry or startup? Mahavir, you smiling?
I think, well, it's not underrated. It's actually overrated. But biotech, to my mind, comes an easy option. But quite honestly, I think industries, everyone will benefit. I don't think there's one industry that will stand out. But I think medical sciences or some sort of medical involved in technology with predictive analogy with AI and ML on human behavior and sciences and medicine might be a sector that no one has thought of while we're looking at cure and other stuff. But I think predictive analysis of human behavior vis-a-vis diseases and medicines is something that probably needs to be analyzed more and could become something of a future, in my opinion.
Okay, Ashish, I thought you wanted to add something by unmuting.
Well, I don't know about, I can tell you some counterintuitive things that I see.
For example?
For example, what I understand is the two-wheeler industry in India is looking to scale up because a lot of people, they feel, are not going to use public transport.
Which is against what I do.
Well, there you go. So it's very, it was counterintuitive for me. But when you think of the thought process, it makes sense.
It's actually very interesting because I strongly believe that the last mile problem has been overinvested. So if now these companies can find a working business model, this could be very interesting. And it's true that the two-wheeler in India, I've seen quite a lot of two-wheelers in the street, and it's interesting how it's evolving. We have a question from our attendee. Maybe Aarti, you want to take it. Do you think that HR in times of work from home and social distancing will become a more critical function in early startups as well?
Sorry, I didn't get the question.
Do you think that HR as a function would get more importance now in times of work from home and social distancing?
Well, yes, absolutely. Like, people, people would kind of get more time to work and everything. I'm not really understanding what you mean by like HR would get more importance.
Human resources as a function of the company.
The team, at the startup.
Maybe I can rephrase. I would say that having a chief HR officer comes at a later stage in the startup stories. Do you think that because of the current context, the importance of managing the personnel, so the HR function, gained in importance?
Yes, absolutely. Like, it's in these times with having your team work in different places, it's even more important to have an individual or your HR team manage these personnels, not in a startup or not in our family office, but in our promoting company, we're seeing where individuals are working from home, and it's more important for the HR department today to kind of motivate them and ensure that they are putting in the hours and putting in the right amount of effort. So I think the role which HR plays today is even more important with your employees working from home.
I'd like to now go to the second topic, which is the ties between India and the rest of the world. So we have been seeing extremely rapid growth of Oyo. I think I did the calculations. They're opening 10 hotels a day or something. Taking over 10 hotels a day, which is very crazy. And Oyo is an example of an India company which is growing globally now. But there are more than that. So what are maybe, Mahavir, for you as part of this Thai global network, the biggest thing that India can offer to the world beyond R&D that is often maybe the first thing we have in mind thinking about India?
So India has a huge market. I think India's fact that India is middle class, rural India, India's impact sector. I think India is a consumer country. I think India. If you ask me, WhatsApp, Facebook, TikTok, all social media is surviving on India. India is not just a technology producer, but it's an end consumer. And I think monetization of all these startups are going to happen into India. Money and investments will have to come to India and India-based startups. I see India has a multi-pronged potential in this domain. Not only are we very good at technology and creating technologies and providing service to various sectors of technology and enhancing the experience, we are also a huge consuming country. And with technology, consumerism, and communication across the globe, and having the brand that India has now become, I think it's a win-win solution. If you create comparisons like Israel, very good with technology, but is it a consuming country? No. It's just you have to have the right marriage of technology and team and enterprise being in India or elsewhere, but having an entity in India, depending on whatever works for whatever vertical But India has a great partnership future from across the globe, across various verticals.
So do you think that India is a producer and consumer of its own products? What would be the really something that you think India would need import from the rest of the world?
So times are gone where I can see that I am self-sustainable and I should only cater to make in India and service to use in India. It's not going to happen. The world is too small a place now. We cannot boycott or we cannot shun something that's technology which floats like a fluid across countries. I don't buy that idea. I think improvising, connecting, whatever has been done, marrying technologies, partnering together is the future. I think India might be a good consumer for Indian-made products, but I don't think long-term that will work because competition across the globe will surely reach. We can't hold back imports, whether of technology or of manpower or of products from any country for long. I think there are too many other parameters that get mumbled and jumbled up, and I don't think governments can hold on to that for long.
Ashish, do you want to add something to Mahavir's answer?
No, I agree with him entirely. I think we are in an interconnected world, and there may be maybe a step back in terms of deglobalization to some extent, and but at the same time, I think we are past the tipping point. I don't think we are going to go back and say, okay, now every country or geography is going to produce and consume for themselves. So I think we are past the tipping point. I think there are interesting things that are happening in India right now. I'm very excited about the announcements of reforms in various sectors, and I hope they do go through, particularly around agriculture. For the first time, I think agriculture might get opened up to market forces. And I hope that seeds a lot of investment into agri-tech and supporting infrastructure for agri-commerce. And that, by the way, India could well be a leader on that. And at least in terms of looking at building some of those technologies and pushing them out to places like Africa or Southeast Asia. Because the confluence of agriculture and tech, there are not too many countries which are strong in that. I mean, maybe a New Zealand and an Australia and some countries in Europe. But for what can be consumed or what can be sold in, let's say, the developing part of the world, that's a big area, according to me. Similarly, there is a lot of talk now in India about defense. Now, in some ways, yes, India, the Prime Minister has announced that we are going to procure more defense locally. But he has also announced that you're going to increase the amount of equity allowed from 49% to 74%. So I hope that seeds a lot of overseas companies bringing technology into into India, so that we can build some defense companies out here. So I think some of the announcements are very, very encouraging. They're extremely exciting, and they could give us the industries and startups for the future over the next 10 years or even more.
You want to speak about deglobalization? This is an interesting concept, and I think also what's happening next to COVID, which is somehow linked, is the tensions between the US and China. I know that Prime Minister Modi is very close to Donald Trump, so India and the US have strong ties, but also with China. India and China have a common border, and lots of communication is happening between the two countries. So I don't want to be too political in my question, but where do you think India should place itself in between these two powers that are currently in a fight?
Who is that for?
Maybe Aarti, you want to take the question? I know you have experience in the US.
Sure. So obviously, India currently has a very good relationship with the US thanks to Modi and Trump friendship. And we've seen some benefit of this trickling down to the economy, not a lot though, but it's good news for us. However, I feel this is an opportunity for India to kind of use the whole pushback which the whole world has against China, right? Kind of, we've lost a lot of our manufacturing and exports to China, and maybe India could, become the new hub for Apple, for a lot of export related stuff. So, I think this is an opportunity which India should utilize, the whole pushback which China is receiving from the entire world, and use it to our advantage.
Ashish, do you want to add something?
Look, I watch politics as a sport. I'm not very much into it, but I just like to enjoy it like a sport and see what's going on. I think it's going to be an interesting match, is all I can say. And I'm more an observer of the trends and seeing how it will play out. I have no expertise in the matter of this, but I think it's going to be a very intense match and a very interesting match.
We often say that the future is software. So China is a big hardware producer. So I hope that it's a big opportunity also for India to profile itself as also the next one on the list in the big power, but hoping to have less conflicts. I'm Swiss, so I like to stay neutral. We have a question from an attendee as well, maybe to start concluding this conversation. Maybe Mahavir, you want to take it? The question is, how true is the statement, investors are only looking for a business where they can simply add money to sales, marketing, and customer success to increase growth, and they will get back a multiple on their money? Is an investor limited to this? Mahavir, are you with us?
I don't see.
I think we lost Mahavir. So maybe Ashish, do you want to take this question?
Yeah, can you just repeat that, Julian? I lost that in the middle.
Investors are only looking for a business where they can simply add money to sales, marketing, and customer success to increase growth and get a multiple back on their money.
Well, if it's a black and white answer, statement is not true. I think as investors, you're trying to build companies that are valuable so that they may exit, or someone through M&A or an IPO or someone else buying it. And it's not simply saying that put money behind sales. Of course, you need to grow sales, you need to grow marketing. That's how a company grows. But in order to get the sales done, or in order to bring consumers on a sustainable basis and help you and pay a premium to you, there's got to be a lot of something at the core of it. And that's really the differentiation you have, the business model you have, the technology that you have, and the people that are building it. So I think that's the explanation to a short answer that between if it's a yes and a no, the answer is no, that's not true.
Aarti, in your situation, when you angel invest in a startup, do you profile yourself as giving money and staying an external stakeholder, or do you try to aim at becoming a co-founder and really be part of the journey?
So again, there are different approaches with different companies. It actually depends on what the company is. I personally let all my companies know that I'm available, but I do not like to interfere on a day-to-day basis. And because the fundamental idea and the company belongs to the founder. If it was my idea, then it would have been my startup, So I am a passive investor, but I let my founders know that I'm available for any call. And I have received calls, especially during these COVID times, multiple times saying, I've not slept last night. What do I do? So, you have to be there for them, but there is a fine line where you become the founder. So that's something which I do not cross.
I think we should slowly start closing this conversation. And maybe as a conclusion, a type of question which I really like is to talk to my mentor style. I'm 27. You have more experience than I do. You all came from different industries before, consulting. Mahavir, you're a serial entrepreneur. Aarti, I think you have a PhD. You have studied in a higher institution as well. So what would you recommend? What are, for you, the biggest learnings from your previous careers that today makes you a better investor? Maybe, Mahavir, you want to start?
Obviously we are what we are today, is making of what we've gone through in our past or what we have learned and experienced in the past. And you can't be me and I couldn't be you because we've all gone through different cycles. I personally feel that the learnings that I have, from this thing is that a true entrepreneur or a true, business person should always survive under all circumstances, continue to grow, be agile, be firm in decision, quick in deciding, but still be flexible when it comes to conducting business or conducting things of importance. I think it's a combination of many elements that are needed. But I also feel that one has to be very frugal. One has to watch his expenses, get value for money, and negotiate whenever is required. Not shy away from, it's not, negotiation is a bad word in terms when it comes to, Indian Jewish this thing, but it's actually negotiating better quality, not necessarily reducing price, getting more for your money. And I think that the person who values money will always do that. And there's nothing wrong with asking a question. I never shy asking from a question, and I never regret. Last but not the least, I mean, I've done many mistakes, but I don't regret a single mistake that I have done. I wouldn't have been where I was if I didn't do things wrong. So, I mean, it's a lot of combination of things. I can go for 20 minutes on this, but this for you, you're young, you're very young. I don't want to tell you how old I am, but I think if you can follow a few of these things, you'd be fine. Thank you.
Aarti, what have you learned that makes you a better investor today?
So, in my opinion, I think knowledge and experience never goes wasted, and one has to be willing to pivot and evolve. My journey started very different. I wanted to be an economist. I wanted to be in like a policy-oriented role. However, I got married. I got this opportunity to set up our family office, and I took it. I evolved. I learned on the job. To many, maybe a PhD in economics may not be a natural qualification to being an investor. I don't have an MBA. But coming from a non-finance background, a more theoretical background, I feel had its own advantages when I was when I kind of go through startups. I have a different perspective. I look at things from a more theoretical point of view. So my biggest learning would be, and advice would be ready to learn, apply, and adapt as you grow and evolve. Your 5-year plan may not work out the way you are. And we're all learning that, right? During this COVID times, things change. But if you work hard enough, I think things become better and bigger. So,
sales skills, hard work. Ashish, what is, coming from consulting, what is your biggest learning?
Well, a lot. I think I wouldn't sort of limit it to a consulting world, but I think there are 4 or 5 points which I think are really important that I see. The first, of course, is people, right? You try to be with good people in your journey through life. Try to be with good people, and try to invest in people. Because that's an investment that never goes away. Because you stay at the back of your mind of somebody whom you have been with even 20 years ago, right? And that's very heartening. I mean, I have people who call me during the COVID crisis and said, "Hey, this is what's happening. What should I do?" So that's all. That's people. I think that's critical. Second is experiences. I think never shy away from experiences. I think the world is going through a tremendous shift. When I was growing up, it was, limited opportunities, limited direction. Today, in terms of geographies and technologies and the things they could do, is enormous. So please immerse yourself in experiences, right? The third one is about learning. I think you've got to constantly learn. You got to be I feel that that's always helpful if you have that inherent nature of trying to learn all the time. And because that keeps your intellectual curiosity up, and it doesn't make investment a mechanical process. Something else comes to me even 5 years down the road, and I don't know anything about it, I would love to learn that, right? So that the whole thing of learning. I think lastly, it's about also self-discovery and trying to find yourself, who you are, and not just follow what the world is doing, what people are doing. As you grow, you must try to keep figuring out who you are. And if you do that, I think voices will speak to you as to what is it that you are good at, and therefore what is it you should be investing into. What is it that you understand? So a combination of these things.
Great. Thank you very much to our 3 panelists today. It was a very interesting conversation, and I wish all the best to all the entrepreneurs you have invested in. I guess they're the one that did the most success, and then you will be better off in the end. Thank you very much for joining. Also, all the people attending on YouTube and Facebook, please follow SpeakIn on social media. There will be lots of interesting webinars coming. And I'm sure that Aarti Gupta, Ashish Wadhwani, and Mahavir Pratap Sharma will join again a webinar soon. Thank you very much, and have a great evening.